when wildlife rescue volunteers found a wounded Mustang stallion lying motionless in a remote Colorado canyon. They assumed it was a straightforward injury case. The magnificent horse refused to move despite his obvious pain, and every attempt to help him was met with fierce resistance. But when they finally discovered what he was protecting beneath his massive body, they realized they weren't witnessing just an injury. They were witnessing the most extraordinary act of cross-species protection ever recorded. This is a story that will challenge everything you think you know about animal intelligence, maternal instincts, and the lengths love will go to protect the innocent. The call came into Wild Heart Rescue at 6:47 a.m. on a crisp October morning. A hiker had spotted what appeared to be a dead or dying Mustang stallion in Copper Canyon, about 30 miles outside Denver. The horse hadn't moved in over 12 hours, and buzzards were beginning to circle overhead. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the rescue's lead veterinarian, assembled her team quickly. Elena was a small woman in her early 40s with a determination that outweighed her petite frame. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes held the kind of compassion that drove her to dedicate her life to saving animals others might write off as lost causes. The rescue team included Marcus Jen, a large animal specialist with 15 years of experience handling traumatized horses, and Sarah Williams, a young but skilled veterinary technician whose gentle touch could calm even the most frightened animals. They loaded their mobile veterinary unit with emergency supplies and headed into the rugged Colorado wilderness. Copper Canyon was a remote area known for its wild Mustang population, but it was also treacherous terrain. The rocky landscape was littered with hidden crevices, loose stones, and steep drop-offs that could easily injure an unwary horse. As their truck bounced along the rough access road, Elena couldn't help but worry about what they would find. The first glimpse of the stallion took Elena's breath away. Even lying down, the horse was magnificent. His coat was a deep mahogany bay that seemed to glow in the morning sunlight, and his black mane spread across the rocky ground like spilled ink. He was massive, easily 16 hands, and probably weighing close to 1,200 pounds. But something was wrong. The stallion lay in an unusual position. His body curved protectively round something they couldn't see. His head was raised, alert and watchful, and his dark eyes tracked their every movement with an intensity that spoke of fierce determination, not weakness. That's not the posture of a dying horse, Marcus observed as they unloaded their equipment. He's guarding something. Sarah unpacked the tranquilizer gun, but Elena held up a hand. Wait, let's observe for a few minutes. Something about this doesn't add up. As they watched from a distance, the stallion's behavior became even more puzzling. Every few minutes, he would lower his great head toward the ground beneath him as if checking on something. His breathing was labored, and they could see dried blood on his left shoulder. But his eyes remained bright and focused. When a curious raven landed nearby, the stallion's reaction was immediate and startling. He pinned his ears flat against his head and let out a warning neigh so fierce the bird immediately took flight. Whatever he was protecting, he was prepared to defend it with his life. I've never seen behavior like this, Elena said softly. He's injured. You can see the blood and how he's favoring his left side, but he won't move. Wild horses flee when they're hurt. They don't stay in one place and guard territory. Marcus adjusted his binoculars, trying to get a better view of what lay beneath the stallion's body. There's definitely something under him. I can see glimpses of. I'm not sure what. It's small, and it's moving. Elena felt her heart rate increase. In 20 years of wildlife rescue, she had seen horses protect their own foals, but this stallion's posture suggested he was guarding something much smaller than a horse. The way his massive body curved created a perfect shelter, like a living fortress protecting whatever lay within. We need to get closer, Elena decided, but carefully. If he's injured and protecting something, he's going to see us as a threat. As the rescue team began their cautious approach, the stallion's eyes never left them. His message was clear. He would not be moved, and he would not allow anyone to harm whatever lay beneath him. What they would discover in the next few hours would change their understanding of animal behavior forever. As the team moved closer, the stallion's defensive posture intensified. His ears stayed pinned back, and his powerful muscles tensed beneath his mahogany coat. Despite his obvious injury, there was nothing weak or helpless in his demeanor. This was a warrior prepared for battle. Elena approached first, moving slowly with her hands visible and speaking in the soft, soothing tones she had perfected over decades of working with frightened animals. Easy. Beautiful boy, we're here to help you. We can see you're hurt. The stallion responded by shifting slightly, further concealing whatever lay beneath him. The movement made him wince in pain, and fresh blood appeared on his shoulder wound. But he didn't back down. Dr. Rodriguez, Sarah whispered urgently. Look at his left foreleg. Elena focused on the stallion's leg and felt her stomach drop. The injury was worse than they'd thought. Deep lacerations ran along his shoulder and upper leg, suggesting he'd fallen or been caught on something sharp. The wounds were at least a day old and showed signs of infection setting in. He needed immediate medical attention, Marcus said quietly. Those wounds are serious. If infection sets in, we could lose him. But the stallion seemed oblivious to his own peril. His entire focus remained on protecting whatever lay beneath his massive body. Every few minutes, he would lower his head and make soft, gentle sounds completely at odds with his fierce defensive display toward the humans. Elena made a decision that went against every protocol in her rescue manual. I'm going to try to get close enough to see what he's protecting. If we understand what's driving this behavior, maybe we can find a way to help both him and whatever he's guarding. Elena, that's dangerous, Marcus protested. He's a wild stallion in pain. If he feels cornered, he could strike out. I know the risks, Elena replied, already moving forward. But look at him. Marcus, this isn't random behavior. This is purposeful, intelligent protection. He's hurt badly, but he's choosing to stay here and suffer rather than seek safety. That tells me whatever he's protecting is worth risking his life for. Elena approached within 10 feet of the stallion before he issued his final warning. The great horse reared slightly on his hind legs, his front hooves pawing the air in a display of power that would have been terrifying, if not for the obvious pain it caused him. But in that moment, as the stallion lifted his front end, Elena caught a glimpse of what lay beneath him. Her breath caught in her throat, and she immediately stopped moving. Oh my God, she whispered. What is it? Sarah called from behind her. Elena couldn't immediately answer. What she had seen defied everything she knew about wild horse behavior. Huddled beneath the stallion's protective bulk was not a foal, not another horse, but something completely unexpected. Marcus, bring the telephoto camera, Elena said urgently. We need to document this. No one is going to believe it otherwise. The stallion settled back down, once again concealing his precious cargo. But Elena had seen enough. Her mind raced as she tried to process the implications of what she had witnessed. The stallion wasn't just injured, he was making a choice that defied every survival instinct his species possessed. Elena, what did you see? Marcus pressed, moving up beside her with the camera. A baby, Elena said softly, but not a horse. Baby, Marcus, there's a human infant under that stallion. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sarah gasped audibly, and Marcus nearly dropped the camera. That's impossible, Marcus said. How would a wild Mustang? Why would he? But even as he spoke, the evidence was right in front of them. The stallion's behavior suddenly made perfect sense. He wasn't protecting territory or a food source, he was protecting a helpless human child, and he was prepared to die rather than abandon his charge. Elena felt tears sting her eyes as the full magnitude of the situation hit her. Somewhere, a family was probably desperately searching for their missing baby, and here in this remote canyon, a wild horse had found that child and made a decision that transcended species, instinct, and even self-preservation. But now they faced an almost impossible challenge. They needed to save the stallion's life, rescue the baby, and somehow convince a fierce, injured Mustang to trust them with the most precious thing in his world. Elena's mind raced as she processed the impossible situation before them. A wild Mustang stallion, bleeding and in obvious pain, had somehow become the guardian of a human infant. The questions multiplied faster than she could think of them. How had the baby gotten here? How long had the stallion been protecting it? Was the child even still alive? Sarah, call 911 immediately, Elena ordered. We need emergency medical services, child protective services, and probably the sheriff's department. Tell them we have an infant in a life-threatening situation. How do I explain this? Sarah asked, her voice shaking as she pulled out her satellite phone. Tell them the truth. Elena replied grimly, they'll figure out whether to believe it or not. Marcus had managed to get several photographs with the telephoto lens, capturing images that would later become evidence in one of Colorado's most baffling cases. Elena, look at this, he said, showing her the camera's LCD screen. The photograph showed what Elena had glimpsed earlier. A small bundle wrapped in what appeared to be a pink blanket, tucked safely beneath the stallion's belly. The baby appeared to be moving, which meant it was alive, but after potentially days in the wilderness, its condition was unknown. The blanket looks clean, Elena observed, and the way the stallion is positioned, he's been keeping rain and cold off the baby. Look how his body creates a perfect windbreak. The stallion seemed to sense their increased urgency. His ears swiveled constantly between the rescue team and the approaching sound of helicopter rotors in the distance. When the Flight for Life helicopter appeared over the canyon rim, his reaction was immediate and dramatic. The great horse struggled to his feet, his injured leg buckling, but his determination unwavering. He stood protectively over the baby, his massive frame shielding it from the downwash of the helicopter's rotors. The effort clearly caused him agony, but he remained upright, defiant even in the face of this mechanical monster descending from the sky. He's magnificent, Sarah breathed, watching the stallion's brave stand. He doesn't understand what the helicopter is, but he knows it's a potential threat to the baby. Elena felt a surge of admiration for the wild horse's courage, but she also knew they were running out of time. The stallion's condition was deteriorating, and every moment of delay put both him and the infant at greater risk. The helicopter landed in a clear area about 100 yards away, and the medical team quickly unloaded their equipment. Dr. James Mitchell, the emergency physician, approached Elena with barely concealed skepticism. Your dispatch said something about a horse guarding a baby, Dr. Mitchell asked. I have to tell you that sounds impossible. I know, Elena interrupted, but look for yourself. Doctor. Mitchell raised his binoculars and studied the scene. Elena watched his expression change from skepticism to amazement to urgent concern. Dear God, there really is a child under there. How long has this been going on? We don't know. Elena admitted. The stallion has been here at least 12 hours, but possibly longer. The baby could be severely dehydrated, hypothermic or worse. We need to get to that child immediately, Dr. Mitchell said. But Elena caught his arm. Doctor, that stallion is wild, injured, and protecting what he perceives as his charge. If you approach too quickly or aggressively, he could panic and accidentally harm the baby, or he could attack to defend it. The standoff continued for several tense minutes as more personnel arrived. Sheriff's deputies, child protective services workers, and additional veterinary staff formed a growing circle around the unlikely pair. But the stallion remained unmoved, literally and figuratively standing his ground. It was Marcus who noticed the change first. Elena, look at his breathing. The stallion's sides were heaving more laboriously, and his head was beginning to droop despite his efforts to remain alert. The combination of blood loss, stress, and the physical effort of maintaining his protective stance was taking its toll. He's going into shock, Elena said urgently. We're going to lose him if we don't act soon. And if he collapses, she didn't need to finish the sentence. If the massive stallion collapses on top of the baby, the very act of protection could become fatal for both of them. Elena made a decision that would either save lives or cost her career. I'm going in, she announced. Sarah, prepare the tranquilizer gun, but only as a last resort. Marcus, be ready with emergency medical treatment the moment I can. Get close enough. As Elena began her approach toward the most dangerous rescue of her career, she had no idea she was about to uncover a mystery that would captivate the entire nation. Elena moved toward the stallion with the careful precision of someone who had spent decades reading animal behavior. Every step was deliberate, every gesture designed to communicate peaceful intentions. The stallion watched her approach with eyes that held both weariness and what could only be described as desperate hope easy. "Beautiful boy," Elena murmured, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I know you're protecting something precious. I'm here to help, not hurt." When she was about 15 feet away, the stallion issued another warning, a low rumbling sound that seemed to come from deep in his chest. But this time, Elena noticed something different. Between his warning calls to her, he made softer sounds directed downward, toward whatever lay beneath him. He's talking to the baby, Elena realized with amazement. He's reassuring it. Dr. Mitchell, watching through binoculars from the medical staging area, spoke into his radio. "The horse appears to be exhibiting protective, parental behavior toward the infant. This is unprecedented." Elena continued her slow approach. When she was 10 feet away, she took a calculated risk. She knelt down on the rocky ground, making herself smaller and less threatening. The gesture had an immediate effect. The stallion's ears came forward slightly, and his aggressive posture relaxed fractionally. "That's it," Elena said softly. "You know I'm not here to hurt your baby, don't you?" The word baby seemed to have a calming effect on the stallion. His breathing slowed slightly, and he lowered his head to check on his charge. At that moment, Elena caught her clearest view yet of what lay beneath him. The infant appeared to be about 6 months old, wrapped in a pink blanket. That was dirty but intact. The baby was moving slightly, which confirmed it was alive, but Elena could see signs of dehydration and exposure. Dark hair peeked out from the blanket, and she could just make out tiny fingers gripping the fabric. "Dr. Mitchell," Elena called quietly into her radio. "The baby appears to be approximately 6 months old, conscious, but showing signs of dehydration. We need to move fast." Elena continued to inch closer, talking constantly in soothing tones. "You've done such a good job protecting her," she told the stallion, "but she needs help that you can't give her. Let us help you both." When Elena was just 5 feet away, the stallion made a decision that defied every expert prediction. Instead of attacking or fleeing, he slowly, carefully lowered himself to the ground. But he didn't lie down completely. He positioned himself so that Elena could see the baby clearly while still maintaining his protective stance. Elena's breath caught as she got her first clear look at the infant. The baby was a little girl, probably around 6 months old, with dark hair and large, serious eyes that seemed far too aware for someone so young. She was wrapped in what had once been a clean pink blanket, now stained with dirt but still providing crucial warmth. "Hello, sweetheart," Elena whispered to the baby. "We're going to get you out of here." The little girl's eyes fixed on Elena's face, and to everyone's amazement, she smiled. It was a weak smile, but unmistakably one of recognition and trust. The stallion watched this interaction intently, and Elena could almost see him making some kind of assessment. After several long moments, he made soft, gentle sounds to the baby, the same sounds Elena had heard him making all morning. "He's telling her I'm okay," Elena realized. "He's giving his permission for me to approach." Elena reached out slowly toward the baby, and the stallion didn't interfere. His massive head remained close, watching every movement. But he allowed Elena to touch the infant for the first time. The baby was warm. The stallion's body heat had kept her from hypothermia, but she was clearly dehydrated and weak. Elena could feel her tiny heart beating rapidly against her chest as she carefully lifted her from her makeshift nest. "Got her," Elena called to the medical team. "She's alive and responsive, but she needs immediate care." As Elena stood with the baby in her arms, the stallion struggled to rise as well. His injured leg nearly buckled, but his determination to continue protecting his charge kept him upright. He followed Elena step for step as she carried the infant toward the medical team, never moving more than a few feet away from the child he had risked everything to save. Dr. Mitchell took the baby from Elena's arms and immediately began his assessment. "Dehydrated. Probably hasn't eaten in at least 12 hours, but her vital signs are stronger than I expected. This horse may have saved her life." As the medical team worked to stabilize the infant, Elena turned her attention back to the stallion. He was swaying on his feet, his adrenaline finally failing as the immediate danger to his charge passed. "Now it's your turn. Brave boy," Elena said, approaching him with her medical kit. "You've done your job, let us do ours." But Even as Elena began treating the stallion's wounds, the biggest questions remained unanswered. Who was this baby? How had she ended up in a remote canyon? And how had a wild horse become her unlikely guardian angel? The answers would prove to be even more extraordinary than the rescue itself. As Dr. Mitchell and his team worked to stabilize the baby in the helicopter, Sheriff Deputy Maria Santos began the investigation that would soon dominate national headlines. The infant had no identification, no car seat, no diaper bag, nothing that might indicate how she had ended up in one of Colorado's most remote canyons. Dr. Rodriguez, Deputy Santos approached Elena as she administered antibiotics to the stallion. We've checked missing person reports for the past week. No reports of missing infants matching this child's description. Elena looked up from bandaging the stallion's shoulder wound. The great horse stood quietly now, allowing her to treat his injuries with the same trust he had shown when letting her approach the baby. That doesn't make sense. A 6-month-old baby doesn't just appear in the wilderness. There's something else. Deputy Santos continued. We found tire tracks about a quarter-mile from here, near the old mining road. They're fresh, probably no more than 2 days old. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. You think someone abandoned her here deliberately? It's looking that way, the deputy admitted grimly. We've got teams searching the area for any other evidence, but so far the tire tracks and the baby are all we have. Elena felt a surge of anger at the thought of someone deliberately leaving a helpless infant in the wilderness. But as she looked at the stallion, who was now allowing Sarah to clean his wounds, she was overwhelmed with gratitude for this unlikely guardian who had refused to let an innocent child die alone. The helicopter lifted off with the baby and medical team, heading for Denver Children's Hospital. Elena watched it disappear over the canyon rim, then turned her full attention to the stallion who had made the rescue possible. His wounds are deep but clean, Sarah reported. The main concern is infection, but if we can get him to the ranch, I think we can save him. If Elena asked. Marcus joined the conversation. Elena, he's a wild Mustang. Even if we heal his injuries, he belongs out here. We can't exactly put him in a trailer and drive him to a rescue facility. Elena looked at the stallion, who was watching the sky where the helicopter had disappeared with his precious charge. There was something almost heartbroken in his expression, as if he understood that his job was done, but couldn't quite accept that the baby was gone. Maybe we can't take him to the ranch, Elena said slowly, but we can bring the ranch to him. Over the next several hours, Elena's team set up a temporary treatment station in the canyon. They brought in portable shelters, medical supplies, and everything needed to monitor the stallion's recovery. It was an unprecedented field operation, but Elena was determined not to abandon the horse who had shown such extraordinary compassion. The stallion seemed to understand that they were there to help. He accepted treatment, ate the high-nutrition feed they offered, and even allowed them to set up a shelter for him. But his eyes constantly scanned the sky as if hoping for the helicopter's return. 3 days into the recovery process, Deputy Santos returned with news that would complete the picture of what had happened in Copper Canyon. We found her, the deputy announced, the baby's mother, Jessica Martinez, 19 years old, from Denver. She was arrested trying to cross into Mexico. Elena felt her heart sink. She abandoned her own child. It's complicated, the deputy replied. Santos explained. Martinez was involved with a drug dealer who threatened to kill both her and the baby if she didn't cooperate with his operation. She panicked, took the baby, and drove out here, thinking she was protecting her daughter by leaving her somewhere the dealer would never find her. She left a 6-month-old baby in the wilderness, Sarah said, her voice tight with anger. She says she was planning to come back. Deputy Santos continued. She thought she could leave the baby here for a few hours while she figured out how to get help. She had no idea how dangerous it was or how long she'd be gone. Elena shook her head in disbelief. She could have gone to the police, to social services, to anyone. There were so many other options. Fear makes people do irrational things, Deputy Santos said quietly. The important thing is that the baby is safe now and the mother is getting the help she needs. As the investigation concluded and media attention intensified, Elena found herself spending more and more time with a recovering stallion. The horse had become something of a celebrity, with reporters and photographers camping out near the canyon hoping for a glimpse of the guardian angel Mustang. But Elena was more interested in the quiet moments when she sat with the stallion and watched him continue to scan the horizon. He had formed a bond with that baby that transcended species, and Elena wondered if he would ever truly understand that his job was finished. The answer came in the most unexpected way possible. 2 weeks after the rescue, Elena received a call that would change everything. Dr. Mitchell was on the line from Denver Children's Hospital with news that seemed too incredible to be true. Dr. Rodriguez, I need to ask you something that's going to sound crazy. Dr. Mitchell began. That baby Isabella Martinez, she's been healthy and thriving since the rescue. But there's something unusual happening. Elena felt her pulse quicken. What kind of unusual? She won't stop crying. Dr. Mitchell explained, unless we play recordings of horse sounds, we've tried everything: music, white noise, human voices. But the only thing that calms her down is the sound of horses neighing or nickering. Elena looked across the canyon to where the stallion stood on a rocky outcrop, still watching the sky with the patience of a century. She bonded with him, Elena said softly. In those hours or days they were together, she learned to associate his sounds with safety and protection. There's more. Dr. Mitchell continued. Child Services has been working with the mother. The situation is complicated. Jessica Martinez is in a rehabilitation program, working to get her life together so she can regain custody. But the baby, she's struggling in foster care. She's not thriving the way she should be. Elena felt an idea forming in her mind, an idea so unprecedented that she hesitated to voice it. Dr. Mitchell, what would happen if Isabella could somehow be reunited with the stallion, just for a short time? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Dr. Rodriguez, that would be highly irregular. We're talking about bringing an infant into contact with a wild animal who already proved he would die before allowing harm to come to her. Elena pointed out, Doctor, what if this stallion isn't just Isabella's rescuer? What if he's the key to her recovery? The conversation that followed involved hospital administrators, child protective services, veterinary experts, and even a judge. The legal and medical precedents were non-existent, but the circumstances were so extraordinary that traditional rules seemed inadequate. After days of negotiation, an unprecedented decision was reached. Isabella would be brought back to Copper Canyon for a carefully supervised reunion with the stallion, under strict medical and veterinary supervision. On the day of the reunion, Elena's hands shook as she prepared the site. They had created a secure area where the stallion could see and hear Isabella, while ensuring complete safety for everyone involved. Portable medical equipment stood ready, and both Dr. Mitchell and Elena had teams on standby. When the helicopter landed and Dr. Mitchell emerged carrying Isabella, the stallion's reaction was immediate and profound. The great horse lifted his head and called out with a sound that was part neigh, part song, and completely filled with joy. Isabella's response was equally dramatic. The baby, who had been fussing during the helicopter ride, immediately stopped crying and began making soft, cooing sounds. Her tiny arms reached toward the stallion as if she remembered exactly who he was. This is incredible, Dr. Mitchell murmured as he carried Isabella closer to the stallion. Her heart rate is actually stabilizing. I've never seen anything like this. Elena approached the stallion, who was trembling with excitement, but maintaining perfect control of his movements. Hello, beautiful boy, she said softly. Your baby came back to see you. The stallion stretched his neck toward Isabella, his nostrils flaring as he caught her familiar scent. When the baby reached out and touched his soft muzzle with her tiny hand, the big horse closed his eyes and made the gentlest sound Elena had ever heard from any animal. For the next hour, they maintained this extraordinary tableau. Isabella laughed and babbled, while the stallion made soft answering sounds. Dr. Mitchell monitored the baby's vitals and found them to be the strongest they had been since the rescue. She's not just happy, Dr. Mitchell reported. She's thriving. Her stress hormones are dropping. Her heart rate is perfect. Her appetite has improved just from being near him. As the afternoon wore on, Eleanor realized they were witnessing something that would redefine scientific understanding of interspecies bonding. This wasn't just a rescue story anymore. It was evidence of a connection that transcended every boundary science had previously recognized. But as the sun began to set over Copper Canyon, everyone knew the magical reunion would have to end. Isabella needed to return to human care, and the stallion belonged in the wild. What happened next would prove that some bonds are too strong for even the best intentions to break. As Dr. Mitchell prepared to take Isabella back to the helicopter, the stallion's distress became obvious to everyone present. The great horse began pacing restlessly, calling out to the baby with increasingly urgent sounds. Isabella responded by crying for the first time since the reunion began, her tiny arms reaching desperately toward her protector. "This isn't going to work," Dr. Mitchell said quietly to Elena. "Separating them again is causing severe stress to both of them. We need to find another solution." Elena looked at the stallion, whose eyes held an intelligence, an emotion that seemed almost human. "What if we don't separate them?" she asked. "Elena, that's impossible," Deputy Santos interjected. "We can't leave a baby in the wilderness with a wild horse, and we can't take a wild stallion into civilization." Dr. Mitchell added, "Even if he's gentle with Isabella, he's still an untamed animal." But Elena was already forming a plan, one as audacious as it was necessary. "What if we create a bridge between both worlds over the next several hours?" Elena made a series of phone calls that would change multiple lives forever. She contacted the Bureau of Land Management, the State Wildlife Department, and several influential donors who had been following Isabella's story in the media. By morning, an unprecedented arrangement had been approved. The state would designate a section of the canyon as a special wildlife preserve, with Elena's Wild Heart Rescue taking permanent custody of the stallion. Under a therapeutic animal program, a modest facility would be built nearby, where Isabella could visit regularly under medical supervision. But the most remarkable part of the plan involved Jessica Martinez, Isabella's mother. After weeks in rehabilitation and counseling, Jessica had made remarkable progress in turning her life around. She had completed her treatment program, found stable employment, and demonstrated her commitment to being a good mother. "I want to be part of this," Jessica told Elena during their first meeting. "That horse saved my daughter's life when I failed her. If Isabella needs him to be happy and healthy, then I want to learn how to be part of that." 6 months later, Copper Canyon had been transformed into something unique in the world, a place where human and horse families coexisted in harmony. A small but comfortable cabin had been built overlooking the canyon, where Jessica and Isabella lived as caretakers of the preserve. The stallion, whom Isabella had somehow learned to call Thunder in her baby babble, had his own spacious enclosure connected to thousands of acres of wild land. But he rarely wandered far from the cabin, preferring to stay close to the little girl who had become the center of his world. Elena visited regularly to monitor both Isabella's development and Thunder's health. What she found consistently amazed her. Isabella was reaching developmental milestones ahead of schedule, showing remarkable emotional intelligence and an intuitive understanding of animal behavior that seemed to come from her early bonding with Thunder. "She's teaching me as much as I'm teaching her," Jessica confided to Elena during one visit. "Yesterday, she was fussing, and Thunder came to the fence and made this soft sound." Isabella immediately calmed down and crawled over to him. "It's like they have their own language." Dr. Mitchell, who had become a regular visitor to study this unprecedented relationship, documented improvements in Isabella's cognitive development, emotional regulation, and physical health that he attributed directly to her ongoing bond with Thunder. "We're seeing neurological development patterns that we've never observed before," he reported to a conference of pediatric specialists. "This child's brain is developing enhanced capacity for empathy, communication, and emotional intelligence. The implications for therapeutic animal programs are staggering." Thunder, meanwhile, had become something of a legend. Wildlife photographers from around the world came to document the stallion, who had redefined human understanding of animal consciousness and compassion. But Thunder paid little attention to the fame focused entirely on his chosen family. On Isabella's second birthday, Elena stood at the fence, watching the toddler play in the grass while Thunder grazed nearby. The big horse never moved more than a few yards from Isabella, and his eyes constantly tracked her movements with the vigilance of a devoted parent. "Do you think he understands what he did?" Jessica asked. Joining Elena at the fence, Elena watched as Isabella toddled over to Thunder and wrapped her tiny arms around his massive leg. The stallion immediately lowered his head to nuzzle her gently, his eyes soft with contentment. "I think he understands perfectly," Elena replied. "He found his purpose that day in the canyon, and it had nothing to do with being wild or free. It had everything to do with love." As the sun set over Copper Canyon, casting golden light across the preserve, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this moment. What had started as a simple rescue call had become a story of love transcending species, of protection becoming family, and of a wild stallion who had redefined what it meant to be a guardian. Isabella giggled as Thunder gently blew air through his nostrils, ruffling her dark hair. The sound carried across the canyon like music, a perfect harmony between two souls who had found each other against all odds and refused to let go. Their story taught the world that sometimes the most extraordinary families are formed not by blood or species, but by love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds that form when one heart chooses to protect another. This incredible story reminds us that love knows no boundaries, not of species, not of circumstance, and not of what society thinks is possible. Thunder and Isabella's bond shows us that sometimes the most powerful protection comes from the most unexpected sources, and that true guardianship isn't about biology. It's about the courage to put another's well-being before your own. Their journey from a desperate rescue to an extraordinary family proves that miracles happen when we're open to seeing beyond conventional boundaries. Thunder didn't just save Isabella's life that day in the canyon. He showed us all what unconditional love looks like in action. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of animal heroism, unexpected families, and the amazing bonds that can form between different species. Leave a like if Thunder and Isabella's journey inspired you, and share this story with someone who needs to remember that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that love is the most powerful force in the universe. What would you do if you discovered an animal protecting something precious? How far would you go to keep a family together, even if that family defied every convention? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more stories that prove love conquers all boundaries.